Imagine spending over $2 million just to buy yourself a job where you can be fired at any moment. You hand over your life savings, every single penny. And in return, you get the keys to a brand new, glowing fast food restaurant. You think you're the boss now, right? You think you finally own a piece of the American dream. Well, think again. Because the moment you step inside that kitchen, you step inside one of the most brilliant, high-stakes financial traps ever engineered. You see, most people look at those iconic golden arches and see a burger empire. They think the money comes from fries, milkshakes, and cheap meal deals. But if you look closely at the balance sheet, you realize something terrifying. McDonald's doesn't actually care about selling burgers. In fact, if they stopped selling food tomorrow, they would still be one of the richest corporations on the face of the earth. So, where's all that money actually coming from? And why are smart, wealthy investors lining up to hand over millions? For a business where they don't even control the price of a Coke. To understand this illusion, we have to look at a man named John. John spent 20 years climbing the corporate ladder. He saved his money, remortgaged his house, and pulled together $2 million in liquid cash just to qualify for a single franchise store. On day one, John feels like a king. His store is buzzing. The drive-through line is wrapped around the block, and the register is constantly ringing. By the end of the month, his store does $300,000 in total sales. John thinks he's rich. But then, the bills arrive. First, corporate takes a mandatory 4% royalty fee right off the top. That's $12,000 gone before John even pays for a single patty of beef. Next, another 4% goes straight into corporate's national advertising fund. There goes another $12,000. Then come the ingredient costs, the employee wages, the utility bills, the insurance, and the constant equipment maintenance. By the time John finishes paying everyone else, he looks at his final profit and notices something completely bizarre. The single largest line item on his entire expense sheet, the check that completely wipes out his margins, isn't the beef. It isn't the labor, and it isn't the electricity. It's the rent. John is paying over 15% of his gross sales directly back to McDonald's corporate just for the right to stand on the dirt beneath his feet. And that is the ultimate secret. McDonald's is not a fast food chain. McDonald's is a $40 billion commercial real estate empire, disguised as a burger joint. To see how this masterstroke was born, we have to go back to 1956. A struggling milkshake mixer salesman named Ray Kroc had taken over franchising for two brothers named Dick and Mac McDonald. The brothers had invented a brilliant assembly line kitchen system in California, but Ray had a massive problem. He was expanding the brand across the country. Stores were popping up everywhere, yet Ray was broke. He was earning a tiny percentage of store sales, barely enough to cover his own overhead. The franchisees were making money. The original brothers were making money, but the man scaling the empire was drowning in debt. Until he met a financial genius named Harry Sonneborn. Sonneborn looked at Ray's books, shook his head, and said something that changed business history forever. He said, "You're not in the food business. You're in the real estate business." Sonneborn showed Kroc a hidden loophole. Instead of letting franchisees buy their own land or rent from local landlords, corporate would set up a separate real estate company. McDonald's would buy the land, build the store, and then lease it back to the franchisee at a massive, artificial markup. If the store did poorly, the franchisee still had to pay a minimum fixed rent, but if the store did amazingly well, corporate's rent check would automatically scale up as a percentage of gross sales. Corporate took zero risk, while taking a cut of every single dollar that came through the door. Ray Kroc immediately bought into the strategy. He famously said, "The only reason we sell burgers is because they are the greatest producer of revenue from which our tenants can pay us rent." Think about that for a second. The burgers were never the product. The burgers were just the bait to get franchisees to pay off corporate's real estate portfolio. Fast forward to today, and that original real estate maneuver has created a money-printing matrix. McDonald's corporate currently owns, or controls the real estate under tens of thousands of stores worldwide, representing tens of billions of dollars in prime land and buildings. While a normal landlord has to worry about finding tenants, McDonald's forces its tenants to sign 20-year binding leases, and it gets even crazier. Because corporate controls the supply chain, John, our franchisee, isn't even allowed to buy his buns, ketchup, or fryers on the open market. He has to buy them from corporate-approved vendors, at corporate-approved prices. Every single link in the supply chain extracts a tiny fraction of a cent. When you add up millions of transactions a day across the globe, those fractions of a cent turn into billions in pure, frictionless profit. But real estate and supply chains are only the first two layers of this empire. There is a third, far more covert revenue stream operating right in front of your eyes, and almost nobody notices it. It's called the mandatory equipment and vendor markup tax. You see, when corporate invents a new menu item, say, a line of specialty coffees or frozen drinks, John doesn't just get a recipe. He gets a strict mandate. Corporate commands John to buy specialized, commercial-grade equipment. A single espresso machine or soft serve unit can cost John upwards of $30,000 to $60,000. And guess who owns the exclusive distribution contracts for those machines? That's right, corporate-approved supplier monopolies. If John's soft serve machine breaks down, which happens so often it has literally become an internet meme, John isn't allowed to call a local electrician or a cheap technician. He is contractually forced to hire authorized service providers who charge astronomical hourly rates, taking another massive slice out of John's dwindling profits. Corporate extracts a kickback at every step, from the machine's initial sale to every single replacement part required to keep it running. Yet, even with all these fees, there is an even deeper level to this game. Welcome to Layer 4, the financial engineering matrix, to Wall Street. McDonald's isn't valued like a restaurant chain that fluctuates with the price of beef or chicken. It's treated like a high-yield, inflation-proof bond. When inflation spikes and raw food costs skyrocket, independent restaurants go bankrupt because they can't raise prices fast enough to survive. But McDonald's corporate has built a bulletproof financial hedge. Because John's rent is tied directly to a percentage of gross top-line revenue. Every single time prices go up on the menu board to cover inflation, corporate's rent check automatically grows bigger. If a Big Mac meal goes from $7 to $12 over a few years, corporate's rent collection increases by 70% on that exact same square foot of land, without corporate spending an extra penny on operations. They have turned global inflation, a force that destroys most businesses, into an automatic profit booster for their real estate balance sheet. So, why would anyone in their right mind agree to this? Why would John put up $2 million just to be squeezed from every angle? Because of one word: certainty. If you open an independent burger restaurant, your chance of failing within the first 5 years is over 80%. You are fighting for survival against every brand on the block. But when you open a McDonald's, your chances of survival skyrocket. The system is engineered so precisely. The brand power is so massive that the average store generates over $3 million in gross revenue every single year, even after corporate takes its royalty cut, even after the inflated rent, even after the supply chain markups and equipment fees. John still walks away with a personal income of around $150,000 to $200,000 a year. For many investors, paying for a guaranteed salary and a bulletproof asset is worth giving up their independence. You aren't buying a business. You are buying a spot inside a perfectly oiled wealth machine. But that machine is starting to show deep, terrifying cracks. Over the last few years, a quiet war has been brewing behind closed doors between local operators and corporate headquarters. Corporate wants every store to look futuristic, demanding expensive touchscreen order kiosks, complex drive-through layouts, and digital menu boards. The cost for these upgrades, often $500,000 per store, paid almost entirely out of the franchisee's pocket. If John refuses to upgrade, corporate can terminate his lease, take back the store, and hand the keys to someone else, leaving John with nothing. And now,